What kind of father was he?
Ernest Ray Warnock was my dad. And he was a hard-working fellow. He started to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and didn't quit till 6 o'clock at night. He started out in life as a farmer, the oldest of 5 boys, to Tom Warnock. And it was kind of a cut-up. He got whipped once for as his role in the family was to be the barbers of the other 4 boys. He cut Armin's hair on one side and left the other.
Why did he do that?
It's not orneriness.
How old was he when he did that?
I don't know, probably late teens.
Yeah.
It was always a cut-up. He had friends in Converse, fishing buddies, and he'd been known to sneak dead fish into the car of his buddies so that they stink the next day.
Never heard that one.
Yeah, done that. But my dad was a good carpenter, I think. He started out as a farmer, but then he, in order to divorce himself from my mother's parents, he got a job with a Standard Oil Company, servicing the farmers around Swayzee, Indiana.
Do you need something to drink?
I just can't keep my mouth from getting dry.
Yeah, let me get you something. Hold on. Okay, you were saying.
Ready again? Yep. Well, my chronology might be a little off. My sister was born in 8 years after I, which was in 1929. And he was working for Standard Oil at that time. And a guy by the name of Eikenberry, which is a World War I pilot, used to barnstorm around these small towns. And my dad supplied him with his gasoline. And so he probably got a pretty good rate on taking a plane ride. That was my first plane ride.
Oh, really? With this barnstormer?
Yeah.
No kidding.
In a biplane.
Wow.
And
did he do crazy stunts when you were up there, or did he take it easy?
He did a few things, you know, but nothing dangerous.
Wow, how old were you when this happened?
Well, I would have been 8 years old.
Wow.
And my mother, who was home with Anna Jean as a newborn baby, Eikenberry buzzed the house. And my mother says, I just knew that those guys were in that plane.
Was your dad in there too? So both you and your dad?
Yeah.
Did Ray tell him to buzz the house, or?
I don't know. But wasn't very long thereafter that he got sick. He got pneumonia. And landed in the hospital. At that time we were living in a duplex at Swayzee. And I can still see them hauling him out one night. In critical shape. And while I was in the hospital, he survived, but he couldn't keep anything down. He vomited everything he could put down.
Mm.
And finally they tried whiskey, and he kept whiskey down.
Mm.
And he hated whiskey.
Yeah.
He was not a drinking man.
Yeah.
But while he was peddling, servicing the farmers around there, auditors would come in every once in a while and audit his books. Well, whenever they came in, they always had a euchre party.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, even though he hated the spirits, always made dandelion wine.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys would get drunk on the dandelion wine, and we had an outhouse. And I swear there was shit all the way from the kitchen to the outhouse. So he kept the auditors in tow. And
So he actually made wine out of the dandelions that would grow in your front yard, essentially?
Yeah, pick it right out of the yard.
How the hell did he do that?
Well, I think I don't ever tell you the truth, but he was
pretty much free wine.
I think he picked them when they were yellow, you know. And I don't know how he made wine out of them.
Yeah.
He stored it up in the attic.
That's amazing.
And
free cocktail.
yeah. So then he got sick, and I think he was down for 6 months or so, and he lost his job with the Standard Oil because in those days you had to, well, you've seen it in the, like milk cans that had handles on them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way they toted petroleum products to the farmers. He had to carry those things.
Hmm.
And as far as the filling them was concerned, that was much of a problem because that was the can't remember what you call it now, but where the rail cars came in and dumped the petroleum products was right behind our house.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he had to get it out of the big tanks into the small tanks that he had to carry. And he got to the point where he couldn't do that anymore because of the sickness.
Mm-hmm.
While he was in the hospital, he got season pneumonia, phlebitis, and
How was all that care paid for?
the old pocket.
So it really, I'm sure, took a huge toll on his finances as
Well,
well.
it did, yeah. And of course, he had built up.
Because there was no such thing as insurance back then, was there? Or?
If there was, nobody could afford it.
Sorry. Petroleum products, couldn't haul it anymore.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital for 6 months. Yep.
He had built up through a stock plan that Standard Oil had, where if you bought a share, they'd give you a share. So he had built fairly substantial investment. And I'm sure that's the way he paid his doctor bills. The other investment he had was when Basil decided to buy that farm that I own half of now. Dad went in with him. Partnership. Well, when times got rough, here we are in 29, the stock market folds. My dad is sick.
Oh my God. That happened during the Depression? You got sick?
Beginning of the Depression.
Oh my God.
And Basil offered to buy him out for 10 cents on the dollar. And I don't think my dad ever liked him after that.
Wow.
So,
Good God.
so I didn't feel badly about inheriting 40 acres in Basil.
Yeah. 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when my dad finally
How'd
got,
your mom feel about that?
she was against it too.
Yeah. But really, they were between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
They had
Well,
to-
you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Wow.
And then when he finally snapped out of it to the point where he could work, times were tough, didn't find a job.
Yeah.
And he got a job in this little garage over Herbst, Indiana, 2 miles east of Swayzee. Herb Davis owned the garage. My dad was making $10 a week, installing the old touring cars had the cloth tops, isinglass windows. That's what he was doing.
Oh wow.
And one day he ground off the end of his finger. When the old blacksmith guy across the road happened to be in loafing, and he recommended that my dad chew some tobacco and spit tobacco juice on that finger. He didn't, of course.
What, to stop the pain or something, or to...
I guess. But the finger never did come off entirely. He went to the doctor sewed it back on. So his right index finger was always a shrivel.
Huh. And how did he cut? How did he cut it off? How did it?
I ground him some way, on a grinder or something.
Ugh.
So that's the way he got through the Depression. And the old tinsmith in Swayzee told me a story one time. He says, I'm going to tell you about your dad. He told me once that he would steal milk from people's porches.
Wow.
Before he'd see his kids go hungry. That was pretty bad.
Did he ever do that?
No.
Yeah.
No, he was as honest as the day was long. And God, I never saw a more honest man in my life. But then when times got a little better, he always read books on carpentry. He was Bob the Builder. And so he took up carpentry and left the garage. Well, that was a good life for him up until World War II. And he was a good enough carpenter that he always had a house to build in the summertime. And of course, in my early college years, and even in my high school years, I used to work for him. I remember a guy by the name of Fergie Fry wanted a barn built out south of Swayzee on his farm. And my dad and I was helping him. And he was giving me, I think, about 80 cents an hour. He probably was going to make about $1 an hour himself. But Fergie was helping. We're putting on this corrugated roofing, and this is the last stage of the barn. And Fergie hit the wrong nail, and it was painful apparently. And I can remember Fergie saying, "I don't know whether to shit, puke, or cry." But my dad was very honest. His carpenter day would go like, we get up, we arrive on the job at 6. We quit at 12. And we'd sit down, open the dinner bucket, and we'd eat our lunch. And then he would he'd take a little nap. I kept hoping all the time he'd oversleep, and he never did.
How long was the nap?
Oh, about 15 minutes, maybe a little longer than that. And then he sharpened his saws on his own time, you know. And that was his lunch hour.
Oh, so his lunch hour.
Eat lunch, take a nap, sharpen saws.
Wow. So eating lunch was what, about 15 minutes?
Yeah.
And about a 15-minute nap, and then half hour sharpening saws.
And then we go back to work at 1.
And what did you during this do? What did you do during the lunch hour?
I tried to take a nap too.
Anyway.
I didn't sharpen saws. But
what'd you do while you was sharpening saws?
I slept, I think. And but he had a kind of a powerful temper. Things didn't go right. I got. I remember a house that we were working on one summer. He always let me do the rough work. And I was putting up some 2x4s or something like that. And something happened to him. He didn't, I can't remember what it was anymore, but made him mad. And he threw the hammer. And I'm putting up this 2x4 and that hammer was whizzing right by.
Oh, God.
He sunburned easily. He wore a straw hat in the summertime. And long sleeve shirts, button down the wrist, collar turned up, and he's still sunburned.
Irish.
So II came. That virtually shut him down in the carpet business because you couldn't get lumber anymore.
Mm.
Government had everything stopped up.
Wow.
So he, there was a trailer factory in Swayzee. And he hired into the trailer factory. Apparently they had a government contract or something, making trailers. And he did the inside work of the trailer, like the kitchen and the living room and furniture and things like that. That was his bag. Good cabinet maker.
When did he make those grandfather clocks?
He made those back in his early years of married life.
Like back when he was building houses and at that time? Or?
No, I think back when he was on the farm.
Oh, really? Wow, so before all of this.
Yeah.
Hmm. Before he got sick?
Yeah.
Really? Did he?
So they're old clocks.
Did he make them all in one year or over the course of several years?
I don't know how long it took him to make it, but probably over the course of a few years.
And why did he make 4? Was he ever planning on selling them, or did he mean for them to be family heirlooms?
Well, he made the cabinets out of whatever he could find.
Yeah.
One that's on Tim's house is going to town. That's the oldest one.
Yeah.
That's the first one they ever made.
Yeah.
This ornate made out of an old organ.
The wood is from an old organ?
Yeah.
Wow.
He bought the works from a company over in Ohio, and he's installed the works himself.
Hmm.
Well, I don't know. He said he made 4. Well, that was the first one. Bell and Basil had one.
Maybe he was just making it for the family back then, eh?
I think so. And then later on in life, I think this was before the war started. He made teardrop. He made a teardrop trailer.
Really? Oh, I think I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sat in your driveway, right? Or something
Sat
like
in the driveway, and
that was all made out of wood, right?
yeah.
Wow.
I think he had an ice box in it, maybe. And he had the door opened in the rear. And
That's amazing.
huh?
I said, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, these things should be museum pieces.
He was, the guy had talent.
He just made it. If he wanted it, he made it. You know, he
Yeah.
made it with whatever
Yeah.
he had available to him.
He got an axle someplace and built this trailer on the axle.
Did you take a lot of trips in it, or
No.
no? Didn't work, or you couldn't?
Yeah,
was it
well,
was it not roadworthy,
It
or?
worked, but we didn't have any money going.
Ah, I see.
If we ever took a trip, 1 or 2 trips, all I can remember. I remember going to the Shades one time. We slept in the car,
Mm-hmm.
in an old Chevy.
What was the Shades?
It was a state park in Indiana.
Mm.
And Turkey rented another one that I remember going through one time.
So you never took an overnight trip with this trailer that he made?
No. Kids played in it all the time.
No. So it became a playhouse.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. I think we finally sold it to somebody.
Oh, that's funny. God, I hope they still have it.
Well, you know, that brings up another thing. To tell you about it, geez.
Hold on.
Probably 7 or 8 years old, something like that. Yeah. And I remember going with him over to up around Syracuse, where they had a carousel, a junked carousel.
Uh-huh.
And he bought a horse off that junked carousel.
Huh.
I can't remember how much, didn't cost him very much. Brought it home. Mounted seemingly with a 2-inch pipe, and it probably wasn't that big, but in the form of rockers,
Mm-hmm.
one on each side of that horse.
How did he bend the pipe? Any idea?
Well, he was good at that. He had stuff in the garage that cherry pickers and everything else.
Yeah.
He had stuff to bend pipe with.
Hmm.
But he mounted the pipe on either side of that horse,
Yeah.
and you know, perfect balance.
Hmm.
And that sat out on the front porch.
Uh-huh.
And I rode that sucker all the time.
Yeah.
That big horse.
Hmm.
That was in my heyday.
How old were you when that?
Well, I think probably 7 or 8 years old. And the outcome of that horse was, of course, after I'd left home, nobody rode it anymore, obviously.
Oh man, I wish we still had that horse.
Yeah, my mother sold it to some people out on a farm, and she tried to get it back, and they wouldn't sell it back.
Yeah. That's sad. That's something that should have stayed in the family.
Yeah. So, let's see. So during the war, he worked in the trailer factory. As soon as the war was over and he could buy a 2x4, he was right back in his own business.
Yeah.
And his wages, he didn't belong to the union. His wages were always a little less than
Mm-hmm.
the union scale. So in his carpenter years, once the lumber became available, he just never was on a job.
Mm-hmm.
And very good carpenter, very good cabinet maker. He made a lot of cabinets in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a redhead.
He helped you build your first house too, right?
Yeah, the one in South Bend.
Did he put the cabinets in there too?
Yeah, I dug the foundation, dug out the well pit and the Michigan basement.
How'd you do that? Did you do that with a shovel or?
Yeah,
You did that with a shovel?
I wore out 2 or 3 of them.
Oh my lord.
And, then when I got when the foundation was all dug and the well pit dug out and the basement's dug out, he had 2 guys that worked for him. I say for him because the relationship was never contractor employee. You know, these guys were just like partners.
Yeah.
They weren't as good as he. He did all the finished work,
Yeah.
and they did the rough work just like I did when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And so when I got ready for him, Dad and these two guys and Basil all came up, pitched a tent, and we poured cement over the 4th of July.
4th of July, what year would that be?
1950.
1950.
And I was getting worried that I was gonna run out of cement. And boy, that was a miracle. I think I had half a wheelbarrow load of cement left over. But these guys they were a bunch of guys that liked to joke around, and they put up signs in the woods where to go take a crap, you know, and